Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns. This is episode 17, and we are back talking about the most recent scandal in the MLB. It feels like this is a video that comes out or has to come out every few months, but we have a betting scandal resulting in a lifetime ban, and we are going to back talk about this. We have the full crew once again. John is back this week. John, I actually forgot to ask you, did you listen to like the first, 15 seconds of the podcast last week when I ripped you a new one? Or I actually forget what I said, but
listen, sometimes I need a break from y'all. Okay. So I was avoiding the podcast. No. It was a good show. It was good. And
John, you got called the weakest link, just in case you were curious.
Oh, that's what I said. It was
a
joke. It was a joke, but I opened the show with that, and
I mean, I was voted off the island. Gotcha.
Right, exactly.
Then he came back.
Was a joke there.
Hey, Ty, I just have to give you a bottle of tequila, and we'll see who the real weakest link is.
This is true. All right, let's get into this one. No, I don't know.
He can't. No, he can't.
We had a lifetime ban on baseball dished out just a few days ago. Former Pirates and I believe Padres. Yeah, Padres. Tucupita Marcano suspended for life for betting on games. He did this while he was on the injured list with the Pirates back in 22. And, he was not in any of those games for the team, but obviously associated with the organization, bet on those games, and he gets the boot, along with 4 other players receiving 1-year suspensions. All, I think, minor league guys, except there was an A's relief pitcher
I do have names
who got a year as well. Yeah, I had him, and then I lost him. Michael Kelly was the guy on the A's.
Yes.
Go ahead. You can say the other.
Oakland Athletics reliever Michael Kelly. Minor league players Jay Groom, who's a Padres pitcher. Jose Rodriguez for the Phillies, who's a Phillies infielder. And Andrew, what is that name? Soel Frank. I probably butchered that one. Anyway, Diamondbacks.
Glad you got it, buddy.
Hey, I put my best foot forward. That's all you can ask for. Also,
I mean,
by the way, Ty, it was more than $150,000 across nearly 400 bets.
So
Marcano.
So all right, I'm gonna be as honest as I can about this because
I'm the Pirates guy,
and I'm not really trying to be funny about this. I'm dead serious. So I was reading into it, and he was like talking about they were talking about like, oh, he betted on the Pirates to win games. Like the thing about like if a criminal does something dumb enough to warrant getting, arrested or thrown the book at, this is the same case. If you're going to bet on baseball, which is like the biggest no-no in the rule book, and you bet on the Pirates to win games, that's what you're betting? Of course, dude, he only won like 4% of his bets. Of course he only won 4% of his bets. Are you dumb? Have you watched him for the last 25, 30 years? I mean, obviously, like, the moral of this is not him winning bets, it's him doing it. But, like, dude, like, get a grip. And you're doing this for what? Like, he ended up losing, like, as you said, $150,000 or $130,000, whatever it was. And now he's not making the millions. Yeah, and now he's not making the millions he was in the MLB. And, like, the other thing, I mean, you can relate that to like these other guys. I think one of them had only bet like $99. Dude, you wasted $99 for a year suspension and potentially more. Are you dumb? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Will, I'll go to you first on this one. What are your thoughts on this? I feel like it's kind of becoming more and more of a problem recently in sports.
I'll keep my initial thoughts short and sweet. What a bunch of morons. That's pretty straight to the point.
Nice. Nice.
I think you stated exactly what the numbers and what you're risking versus what you're getting is just not worth it. As for this potentially being more of a thing, I do think this was just kind of a matter of time before players really started either betting on it or things started coming out about players betting because of how so many sports betting books are a part of baseball and sponsorships now, that even if they're very told like you're not betting, you can't bet, you get enough exposure to all the betting at some point, you might cave in.
Yeah, and it's not just baseball, right? Like we've seen that in other sports as well.
But something to think about on this, on another level, baseball's golden boy was just in a scandal about this because his translator did this. And you're essentially nobody in comparison. So what made you think that you could possibly get away with this?
Well, I mean, again, if you kind of look at it as a whole, these guys aren't thinking, right? Like, if you're weighing the salary that they're making and what they're going to make on sports betting, it doesn't even come close to like why even take the chance. I think I mean,
I kind of get it for the minor leagues,
but yeah, and that's what I'm gonna say. Like maybe the minor league guys, but like, dude, like you're risking so much. The funniest part about this, still to me too, is like not only are they dumb for doing this, they also suck at sports betting because most of them were like sub 20% success rate. So it's one thing to be dumb. It's one thing to be dumb and bad at what you're doing. So it just does not make a lot of sense to me. Marcano, I know he wasn't a prominent name, obviously, but he's been in and around the MLB or AAA, bouncing between teams and stuff. And it's just like, man, like you kind of just threw everything away. It's a really, really tough look in that sense. And once again, I mean, this is the MLB's big, like I was reading, I guess it's posted in every clubhouse, Rule 21. You cannot bet on anything baseball related or, anything with the sport. And you have guys doing it. I mean, Will, what is your take on, I guess, the harshness of this penalty as we've seen over the years, especially obviously relating to when a guy is betting on his own team?
I mean, it's pretty blatantly obvious. The rule says you cannot bet on baseball games. So if you're going to break the simple rule, get out. I mean, it's harder to, I guess, define what's acceptable, what's not nowadays, given baseball's taking in the sponsors, the sponsorships of the different betting books. But I mean, from just the standpoint of it's in the rules that you can't bet, and then you bet. It's like, what do you want to do? It says don't do it. You did it. Get out of here. Plus, I mean, thankfully in these instances, it wasn't simply a matter of someone betting and throwing games. We can go back way, way in the past if we really want to get into that. But so at least it's not destroying potential outcomes for games anymore, but it's still a big no-no.
Yeah, and straight from the source here, any player or umpire, or club official, employee of the team who shall bet any sum whatsoever. So literally, as the one guy did, like less than $100 in a baseball game in connection with the bettor, they shall be declared permanently ineligible. And it's just like, again, what the risk reward here is just so ridiculous that why you'd even think about this. John, I'll kind of throw it to you on this one. What is your kind of take on this as a whole, with these players and kind of what they've done for their careers now?
Well, I think they have a permanent spot in the Mexican League, Cuban League, Korean baseball, NPB, whatever they want to do, But MLB, they're done. It's as simple as that. And I think Will put it perfectly when he made his first comment Morons.
Yeah, essentially where we're at. That
Potentially
as you
millions.
mentioned,
Potentially
yeah.
millions for
The game maybe an
$99.
extra
Just-
100 at night.
Yeah, and look, I understand in a sense, like now, maybe it's different from like an athlete standpoint who's actually playing, but as a fan, right? Like when you're sports betting, you're doing it primarily, obviously, because there's a chance to get rich. I get that, but also it adds some suspense or it adds some entertainment to a game that you might otherwise just not care about. It gets your adrenaline going, but for these guys who are playing in major league stadiums, it just I don't know why it would be appealing to them again when they know the risk. And you're seeing this not only in the MLB, the NBA just had a case where a player got suspended. I mean, and that was a little bit crazier because he was playing and betting for his team to lose. But you had that. I mean, you had Ippei and Ohtani's since been cleared for everything there. But you're seeing it more and more, and I think obviously sports betting and sports books and all this have become a lot more prevalent with our new times and all this, all these laws and stuff that have gotten passed. And I think it's just the access for players. It's so much more that it kind of makes it tough. John, I'm actually going to go back to you. Speaking of what I'm kind of talking about, like obviously sports betting is not new. It's been around for a long time. So before we delve into a little bit more, I kind of want to go back and recap, some of the instances that we've had in Major League Baseball over, these last 100 years or so. So I'll throw it to you now for that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, going all the way back to the late 1800s, ladies and gentlemen, this goes on. Thank you, Maestro, for my lovely music. In 1877, members of the Louisville Grays admitted to throwing exhibition games for money. In 1903, which was the first modern baseball era, which was the first year of the World Series, it was nearly tainted. That exact World Series was nearly tainted by members of the Boston Americans. Catcher Lou Krieger, for example, was almost talked into throwing games by gamblers. Now we fast forward to 1919, probably one of the most famous, the Chicago White Sox and Shoeless Joe Jackson, forever known as the Black Sox, for throwing the World Series that year against the Cincinnati Reds. And they were banned by then-Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who instituted this policy that any player that is involved in gambling with baseball will be ineligible permanently. We're going to fast forward here to 1943. Owner of the Philadelphia Phillies, William D. Cox, was banned for life by Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis for making approximately 15 or 20 bets on his team, according to The Athletic. 1989, Charlie Hustle. Pete Rose is banned for life for betting on his own team between 1985 and 1987 while playing for and managing the Cincinnati Reds. Now we fast forward to 2024. We mentioned this briefly earlier. Ippei pleads guilty in connection to the Shohei Ohtani then scandal. His translator, Ippei Mitsuhara, I probably mispronounced his name, but whatever. Anyway, specifically on Tuesday, according to AP News, he pleaded guilty to both tax fraud and stealing nearly $17 million from an unsuspecting athlete's Arizona bank account to pay off his gambling debts. Now, later this year in 2024, Mercado is banned from baseball indefinitely, and across the league, 4 other athletes are suspended for a year. Thank you, Maestro, for your time.
And yeah, as you can see, This was going to kill himself. Sports betting has been around for a while, and there's been obviously more serious cases with the Black Sox and throwing games and stuff. And while these are not the same level of throwing games, obviously the severity is still there. Will, in your opinion, do you think there should be a I guess difference if a player like Marcano is betting on his team, but he's not with them, he's not playing, he's not necessarily getting insider information? Should that lifetime ban be still enforced like it is for a guy if he was throwing the game?
I mean, the rules are the rules. I don't necessarily think immediately that there should be a difference. It's straightforward as a player, and maybe you have some type of influence anyway through contacting a player on the game that you're not in. So I feel like that rule should stay exactly as it is pertaining to the punishment, no matter if they're playing in the game or even on the team that's playing in that game.
John, I'm going to throw the same question to you. Do you think the rules are fair and just in the fact that a guy that is not affecting the outcome should be punished the same as a guy who is?
You can't make exceptions here, regardless of who it is. You have to, if you are found guilty of this, of betting on a baseball game, you have to have the same rules for Mercado as you do Ohtani. I mean, if Ohtani did do that, he would have been banned from baseball, and it would have been a huge loss. Thankfully, he wasn't. Mercado, on the other hand, regardless of the amount, regardless of whether he's on the team or not, he could have influenced that and been like, "Hey, buddy, I got a 14 parlay here, with Joe hitting a single in the second, and the other team's pitcher giving up, or striking out 7 guys for about 100,000. I'll split it with all you guys evenly." And he could have affected that. Could have affected it that way, and that's how you have to look at it on this stance, and that's just how it is. You can't make exceptions to the rule, regardless whether on the team physically or not. The fact of the matter is, they did what they did. They could have affected the game, and we saw in history that players did throw games when approached, and having that apple of Eden of gambling dangled in front of them.
I want to kind of tackle on real quick too, Ty, before you take on, is that I feel like something John said kind of is true that I think he even realizes, is that you can't make exceptions, but you also can't make the rules more convoluted, because the more convoluted they are, they accidentally will create loopholes. So making this rule as black and white as possible, where it's if you bet period on the rule or on any game, it's an automatic ban. I don't think anyone disagrees at all that it should be that black and white. If you're affiliated with the team in any way, you really shouldn't be betting on games, especially ones for games you're directly a part of in some way.
So yeah, and I think that's true, because we literally just did a segment talking about how the MLB kind of has a lot of gray areas with these base runner interference stuff, and that's kind of affecting it. We've seen it with the interference at the plate too, and all this. So you're right. I think it has to be black and white. I think you can't stray from that. Now, in these cases that the most recent cases, these 5 players, it wasn't found that insider information was being granted to them to persuade them. They were just betting. I think a lot of the minor league guys were betting on their major league teams, it looked like, or it seemed like. So I know I think Jay Groom was on Boston at the time when he was doing it, and he was in single A, but he was betting on Boston to win or whatever the case may be. And obviously not good, right? And it can't happen, but it's kind of it's a weird thing. And in this new day and age of this accessibility to sports betting. I don't think this is going to be the end of it. I really don't. I think that there is going to be other instances. Now, is there a chance that these guys see what's happening and they're kind of scared about what the outcome could be for them? And, oh, man, this guy just got suspended for life or whatever the case may be. Maybe, right? But I just think that a player just sometimes, I think it's almost like, I don't want to say, force a habit or like nature, but like sometimes these guys just delve into things, and even though it's strictly prohibited, it's probably going to happen again. And I think again, this will not be the end of it on that stance. I guess let's start to get into the conversation about the accessibility of all this stuff, all these sports books, right? Like we're seeing on every broadcast, they're having betting lines pregame. We're having sponsors sponsored by DraftKings, FanDuel, blah blah blah, and how much that's changed. Will, what's your kind of opinion on that? Just based on what we're seeing now, like that players are getting into this stuff.
I've always felt that baseball taking on sponsorships from sports books is just extremely hypocritical, because I feel like you're just asking for bad news, especially if you're going to have a rule that says players are not allowed to bet on any baseball game in any amount whatsoever, no matter if it's their team or not, and it's a full-time ban, to then be like, you're not allowed to do this, and we mean it by like black and white, here it is, you're not allowed to bet. Meanwhile, here's our sponsor, the thing you're not allowed to do. That just seems completely off to me. So I don't feel like, it's always rubbed me the wrong way seeing it. I understand baseball brings in a boatload of money from these sponsorships, and betting is more and more of a thing, and it is a way to bring in non-baseball fans or maybe people that have very minimal interest in baseball, because you throw a little money on the game, you're suddenly invested in it. I know one of the ways I get into March Madness every year, even more than I did in the past, is by filling out a bracket and seeing how my picks do. So it is a way to bring in other fans. It just rubs me the wrong way to see baseball be so against betting and then take in the sponsorship money anyway.
Yeah, I mean, as you kind of said, I think it has to happen. And this is where I'll throw it to you, John, because I think there is, despite all this happening with all these players and maybe them trying to itch, or scratch an itch rather, and this urge to do it. I mean, there is a lot of good with sports books being a part of these major leagues now. So, what's your take on that?
My take on it is the fact that, look, I'm going to read the exact number of what MLB is projected to make. According to AmericanGaming.org, Major League Baseball stands to make this year $1.1 billion, not million, billion dollars from from sports betting ads. That's a huge number, and regardless of how we feel about this rule, this is a business entity. Major League Baseball is a business entity, and they have to put out sponsorships. And one of the biggest factors of sports in terms of fan experience is sports betting. So to not want to have a slice of that pie, when you're set to make $1.1 billion from this, is huge. I mean, I understand you can see it as hypocritical, but their main purpose is to protect the integrity of the game and to also make money. Regardless, bottom line, that's what they walk away with, is they have to do both those things in order to protect the sport and to also make investors happy, regardless of how we feel. So, in terms of doing that, that's what this is making money,
So I think from a standpoint of the money that's being made or the revenue generated, the fan interest. I think all that is very positive, but it happens in baseball all the time, more than other sports. There's this whole thing of, well, the integrity of the game, blah blah blah, this and that. Like, Will, in your opinion, do you think the MLB and just endorsing these sports books and having them as partners is, I guess deterring that notion of the integrity of the game, or is it just when we have instances like we just had with Marcano?
It's such a tough area. It's hard for me to really put my foot down on one side or the other because I see both sides fairly evenly in that sense. Because I think John's right in the end. It's a business. The business aspect of it comes first. It's still very clear in the rules. You can't bet. Nothing has changed now. But I mean, I have to lean a little towards it does feel like the integrity is somewhat being questioned if baseball is so against something and then is allowed to bring that in as much as they are into baseball facilities and take in the money. Because then it starts to raise the questions to me of, all right, if they're going to let betting in like they are, then does that potentially change the punishment for players? Because I know the whole argument about Pete Rose and whatnot, about whether or not he should be brought back into baseball. And I, for the longest time, would have said he broke the rules. It's a shame he did what he did, but he should be basically kicked out of baseball. But to see then baseball bring in the sports betting stuff, it's like, well, you just kicked out Pete Rose. Now you kicked out Marcano, whatever his name is. I'm gonna forget it, so I'm not even gonna try to say it. The Pirates now Padres guy. Nope, Tuca Pizza. I can say that. But seeing baseball bring in the betting sponsorships and the money and having it be so prevalent in baseball games now, I do have to wonder if they're starting to cross the line into the other one and be like, all right, is it maybe now time to consider a slight rule change and bring back in some of those players that have been kicked out?
No, I mean, it's
I was going to say it's on the other side too. It's like, do they? I mean, I don't think they can take a step back because now they're kind of all in, and I think you have to be in or out with like, all right, we want sports betting to be a part of our culture and this and that. But I mean, you're seeing it, dude. You like go to games and they have like the friggin' lines up on like the betting lines up on like the screens. Like there's some places have spots where you can like bet or like not that you can bet there, but like you can. There's a whole thing about it, right? Like, and I just feel like
hold on. We are confusing integrity of the game. We're confusing that term. The term integrity of the game is in terms of knowing that nothing is being done outside of on-field play that will impact the outcome of this game. Regardless of whether somebody phones it in for a play or whatever, that's a totally different issue. But knowing that a gambler in Vegas does not have control of the outcome of this game, that's what integrity of the game is. Not whether or not it's the moral hypocrisy or not, however you want to look at it. That's a totally different issue if you want to take that stance. But integrity of the game is based on outcomes.
Right, but I think it bleeds a little bit into each other when you talk about now you have these athletes that are a part of it. Like, I think obviously from a fan perspective, that's one thing. But if you're talking about like, and again, you're not just talking about baseball. Like, so you have I think it was May 2018 is when the Supreme Court had, taken down the act for sports betting. And then, I mean, right away in 2019, an NFL player was suspended. There was cases in 2021 with MLS players. Calvin Ridley in 2022 gets suspended. So like there's all these things. There was 5 players in 2023 in the NFL again. So I just feel like it kind of bleeds into each other when the prevalence of these sponsorships, and it's everywhere, and it's this and that. They're pushing it so much. I think if players are getting involved because of those things, that's when it bleeds into each other. That's my counterpoint to that.
And that's an issue on the players, not on the business.
Right.
That's what that is.
But the culture of, I think this culture of the integrity of the game, I think gets affected because of that, though.
Look, baseball has been this way for 100 years. It hasn't changed on this stance for 100 years. If you don't know by now that baseball is going to feel very, bad in terms of how they view you as a player gambling in their sport, that's on you, not on baseball. This was instituted in 1920. Okay, so this is 104 years. If you don't know by now, then shame on you. That's my stance.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand that, but looking at it from a fan's perspective, though, right? Like if they're seeing, oh man, this guy just got suspended for life, and look at all these sports books, and blah blah blah. I think that's what I'm kind of
at the player, not at MLB.
Right.
That's not MLB didn't hand the guy his phone and be like, "Hey, make sure you go on DraftKings. Make sure you go on DraftKings. DraftKings, you can place a nice little bet."
I feel like you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm saying like it's just not a good. The MLB is if you're on the stance of, okay, the MLB is pushing for all this stuff to be out, and it's bleeding into their players, I think that's when fans who maybe are not as informed on the matter, like, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but like they might look at it as like, oh, that's kind of messed up, like that this is happening. And it's not just, oh, it's messed up on the MLB, it's just a messed up situation, which then kind of taints the integrity of the game, is what I'm kind of, what the long lines of what I'm saying.
I don't think it taints the integrity of the game. I think it taints how they might view it more as a business rather than a kid's game, which, in reality, it's a business. That's what MLB is. You don't have guys staying in the same city for 35 years like back in the day. That's a totally separate thing. But either way, the point of the matter is that MLB now is more of a business than ever. So, of course, you have to look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get personal about this. The fact of the matter is that these players they were just dumb and did this. MLB didn't tell them, hey, make sure that you're betting. They say every single year, it's posted in their locker room, in the clubhouse of every single MLB and minor league team. Rule, whatever, no betting. And obviously, that's putting it mildly, but you get the point. That it's posted. It's been this way for 100 years. They should know better. It shouldn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like there might be, you're right. I think they should know better. I just think that, again, maybe these guys have that urge, and it still doesn't make sense to me. It'll never make sense to me, as we kind of already said. Like, they're throwing away their however long career and however much money for something very, very silly. I don't know the reason why they're doing it. I don't know if it is just because they are getting all this information and looks great and they want to do. I don't know. That's what I wonder. Kind of I don't want to say a random question. I'll give you Will, but something I was kind of thinking about is that, I believe the rules for most sports, and I try to double check this as we were talking, but a player can't bet on their sport, but they are allowed to bet on other sports. So an MLB player could, I guess, bet on the NFL and be okay with that. Are you in the mind that that's okay? Because, I mean, obviously, it's a completely different thing, but, like, there still could be some conflict of interest. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
My initial hunch is that I'm okay with them betting outside of the sport because they should be allowed to bet if they want for fun. It does get trickier if maybe a superstar was involved because of how it seems like so many people are connected between sports and know one another. And so then I feel like if you're going to have to put a restriction on any type of player, you got to put a restriction on everyone. But there's been no set precedent that I can think of players intertwining between sports or crossing over whatever to try to affect an outcome. So therefore I kind of just want to leave it right now as they're allowed to bet between sports if something were to come up down the line where it turned out that they're texting Joe Schmo or whatever who plays another sport and they're like, hey, I need you to do this so I can win a bet, and he does it, then that would potentially cause that should then cause major changes to betting between sports if you're an athlete.
Yeah, and that, I guess that was kind of my point. Like, athletes know athletes, and not that I think it happens, but it's just an interesting thing because baseball is so you can't bet, obviously, whatever, and it's just like funny that they can really do it on other sports, and maybe I don't know how many athletes are doing that, or baseball players or whatever, but yeah, it's just kind of an interesting point with that, and I think the last kind of point for this I want to end on is overall I think that sports betting is a good thing for, as John said, business wise, and I also think it's a good thing for the fans. As I said, I quite like enjoy sports. What? I can't talk. I like sports betting because it gets you into into games that you might not. It gets you into games that you might not want to be into, and it causes it entertainment and sports. But again, we'll end with that on that point. I do want to talk about Pete Rose because anytime you talk about sports betting or gambling, he comes up in conversation. And he's been out of the game for 30, 40 years now. It doesn't look like anything will be changing on that front. It looks like he will be permanently, I guess, banned from baseball. But John, I'll go to you first on this one. What is your take on his situation, Pete Rose, and ultimately we're going to be answering the question: should he be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh man, that's a hard one. In terms of the black and white, rule, Pete Rose did what he did. He on top of other stuff, but in terms of sports betting, he did what he did. I read the blurb that for 2 years he was doing it while managing and playing. It. Fact of the matter is, by the rule and the letter of the law, which we can't make exceptions for, which we stated, Pete Rose should not be in baseball. He should not be affiliated with baseball and the Hall of Fame. In terms of his overall playing ability, he is certainly Hall of Fame worthy in terms of him playing. However, he violated one of MLB's top rules, so it's hard for me to say one way or the other. Good old Charlie Hustle, in more ways than one, definitely put his mark on the game. Let's put it that way.
And I think, you mentioned he was doing this while he was managing and while he was playing, which I think is where it gets a little dicey, right? But
especially as a man,
as you said, right? And I believe he has stated time and time again that he was betting on his team to win, but I'm sure there's proof of that one way or another, but to me, that's, you can't do that either way. And I think from the side of, as you said, talent wise, obviously he makes it in a heartbeat. But Will, what is your thought on Pete Rose and his Hall of Fame? I don't want to say campaign, but should he be in the Hall of Fame?
The tricky part is how I'm trying to define in my head kicking out of baseball. because part of me I really want to say that he broke the rules, black and white, plain as that. So therefore, the rule for betting in baseball is you're kicked out of baseball. But the part of it that I start to then question is, does that mean you basically remove him from baseball history, kind of? Because that's,
Right.
in a sense, kind of what baseball has done, is that it's not just now we're kicking him out of baseball, he can't be associated with it. It's that we're kicking him out of baseball and everything he's done, aside from the fact that just the record books will read that he had so many hits and this was his career and blah, blah, blah. That they're basically trying to acknowledge anything about him. And that is the part that I feel like is not I don't feel like should 100% be true, because I think about like the steroid era now and those players, because a lot of those players are in the middle or have just finished or ended potential Hall of Fame campaigns, and there's a huge debate about them. And those types of players are not banned from baseball, but what they took was illegal and did impact games in that way. You could argue negatively, whereas in Pete Rose's situation, as far as I'm aware of, everything he did not involve tossing a game. So if you want to remove Pete Rose from baseball and he's not allowed to show up to any baseball games, which I know is not true considering the Phillies had him a year or two ago and celebrating the anniversary of the 1980 World Series team. And then, but if you want to remove him, that he can't go to any baseball events, he can't go on any broadcasts or anything or whatever you want to claim as kicking him out of baseball, fine. But I feel like you can't then immediately reject everything that he did prior to then, because it happened, it's part of history, and it is what it is. Now, that's, in the end, not going to change, I think, vote getters' minds in regards of bringing him into the hall, but I do think there needs to be that separation of he's kicked out of baseball, he's not allowed to come back into baseball, whatever that term truly means. But he did still do what he did, and therefore there should be some recognition as to the type of career he did do. You just don't need to get him involved in it.
Does that narrative change, though, if so, like, obviously we know why he got banned, but on a technicality, he signed that he would be banned from baseball, but he didn't get banned from baseball because of betting. If that makes sense, like if you look into it, he signed his life away per se in baseball, but he didn't get like convicted. Does that change the narrative of like, okay, well now there's leadway for us to put him back in baseball? And I don't want to have a full conversation on this now because it's going to come up in a later podcast, but you were talking about the steroid era, right? And at the time they were not illegal until after it had happened, but it's still tainted because of everything I guess we know now and all these history stuff and blah blah. Is that technicality, I guess, like give him a little bit of a pass? I don't know exactly what I'm trying to ask, to be honest, but like I just feel like
I still think that blatantly in the end is he broke the rule.
Yeah.
So therefore, regardless of what he signed or not, he should be kicked out of baseball. Then the question just still simply is that remove him completely, basically, or is that just removing him from the point of suspension onward, not ignoring what he's done and should be recognized for what he's done?
Right. And then like the other thing to that too is I think there was kind of a range of like what years he had done it. Like if they were to reinstate him, do you think, or not even if they were to reinstate them, do you think that like those years that they have proof that he bet should be erased and then he could still get into the Hall of Fame, or should it just be voided completely? Because this guy had a great career, and I think like again, you can't take away his talent. It's just that the off the field.
You can't erase anything. Best you can do is put an asterisk mark. I know that's part of the debate when it comes to the steroid people. Is you want to say like, I know people have very strong opinions about Barry Bonds. If You want to say Barry Bonds is the home run king? Sure. There's people that'll say yes, but they want to put an asterisk next to it because he did it steroid era. You want to put Pete Rose in his career stat line that he did X, Y, and Z, and then you want to take that whatever window period at the end and say was known for betting. You can do that, but you should not erase it because it's happened.
Right. Again, it's all the stuff he's done, and not that I'm agreeing that he should be in the Hall of Fame. It's just I'm almost playing a little bit of devil's advocate because he was so good, and like yes, he was betting on games, but he wasn't, betting against himself per se. It was more of him. He was betting for his team mostly, and it's not. If it was the other way around, it's like, all right, I'm going to bet that I get 4 strikeouts today. And he goes up there and strikes out 4 times. That's one thing. But, like, he's out there. He's still producing. I agree. You can't really go into a gray area with that. But, it's really interesting because he really did dominate baseball for a long time with just how many hits he's had. I don't think there's a player within, like, 1,000.
The
that
closest
played
you
after
could say
him,
is Ichiro because of
Yeah,
Ichiro's
which-
time in the
yeah.
MLB and in Japan.
And I think Jeter was like 3,500 ish or something close to that. So it's
I
insane
didn't
what
realize
he
his
was
home
able to
runs were
do.
that low.
Oh yeah,
He wasn't a home run hitter. He was a
He
slap
was not
shot
a home
guy.
run hitter. Yeah.
By the way, kind of off topic, but I was reading about him like when Ohio got sports betting, and apparently he made it very publicly known that he was going to be betting when that became legal.
Yeah.
To
First person in
What
line.
did he have to lose?
Yeah,
What did he have to
exactly.
lose?
I don't know. I think ultimately for me, I agree he shouldn't be in. It is a little
have a
bit
question
strange
for
to me
you.
though. Okay.
I have a question for you, Ty, and Will. What about Shoeless Joe Jackson? In the World Series that he was a part of for throwing, he batted .375 with 12 hits, 1 home run, and 3 doubles. In 32 at bats. His stats say, was he trying to throw it? You get into that, but that's my next question. Is if we're talking about Pete Rose with this, what about Shoeless Joe?
I mean, it's interesting because of like those stats, but I guess my perception of it is still that team was trying to lose or they were throwing it, and we know that factually. I don't think you can say
8
the same
players
for
on
Pete
that team.
Rose.
Let's
Right.
be clear here.
Right, but like, as much as I hate to say it, it's almost like guilty by association because you just don't know what's happening there. But with Pete Rose again, I don't think he wasn't betting to throw games. It seems like again, it was more betting for his team. So I think it's a little bit different than that. So for me to answer your question, no, I do not think he should get in on that merit.
My main thing I can think of is if he took the bets, and regardless of what his actions did, then now if he didn't take any money or any bet money and knew about it and didn't say anything, I would feel like in that case he knew about it, but he didn't actually bet, so then he should be allowed.
He didn't actually bet.
Yeah.
He didn't.
I know
did not
he's been
place
kind
the
of.
bets. It was that the gamblers wanted them to fix the World Series. Just to give a brief history here, wanted them to fix the World Series. I would have to look up the exact number as to what they actually received, but what they were promised was not what they received. So if you give me a second here, I can give a better answer.
I
wasn't prepared for the music there.
Again, like as much as I kind of say what I'm saying about Pete Rose, if it happens, you can't be gray. It can't be the gray zone with this. Like it has to be black and white. If it happens in any capacity, you do just have to shut it down. I just find it a little bit funny that they like all these steroid users, right? And they did it for a while, but I feel like now they're kind of phasing them back into the picture. But like they really tried to erase Pete Rose, if that makes sense. Like it's like, almost trying not to acknowledge that he ever even played. And for the steroid users, I feel like that was happening for a little bit, but I think now like they're back in. Like you're saying, I know a little bit different, but you're saying like an MLB The Show, the video game, their cards are coming in and stuff. So it just feels like they like have just completely tried to erase Pete Rose, and guys that also did things to affect the integrity of the game are just like, well, these guys aren't as bad, so like we'll let them back in. But
so
what are you gonna do?
According to Google, it says that the Black Sox received 5,000 each, except for Chip Gandil, who received, I think it's 35,000. Yep, 35,000.
He didn't
the
throw
equivalent
the
of the
game as hard.
5,000. No, he threw it more. No, he was kind of the mastermind of it for the team. The 5,000 equivalent today is 88 grand. The for Chip Gandil, it's 615,000 is the equivalent today. So just for a little bit of inflation context there, but yeah.
Right
in terms of all the details there.
Yeah, I think we'll kind of end it on that note. I think sports betting, I think now is good for the business of baseball. I think obviously if you're a player, as Will said, you are an absolute moron if you indulge in that, even though it might be very tempting. What are you risking that for? And yeah, I think we all kind of agree. Pete Rose, although the hits speak for themselves, you just can't put a guy in that broke that line that, again, has been so prevalent in the MLB. So under there, Bobby, I'm actually going to throw it to you because I completely forgot that I was supposed to throw it to you at the beginning of the show. If you're ready for whatever, I don't even know what the surprise is. So
yeah, listen, man. Listen, this is something that I found incredibly interesting, and it's not necessarily baseball related, but it's at least somewhat close. I don't know if you guys saw today, but this right here happened. The U.S. has stunned Pakistan in the men's T20 Cricket World Cup. Now, I couldn't I realized I cut to the wrong 3-cam, but sorry about that. I completely omitted John for some reason. What
I do? Wow.
Now I don't know the rankings at all. I couldn't tell you a damn thing about cricket. I know our boy John Boy, somebody we talk about all the time on this on the show. Does some breakdowns of these things, of some cricket games every once in a while, because there is a lot of similarity between, this game and baseball for sure, right? But I think it is hilarious that the U.S., who I don't, like, my understanding is, like, one of their top players is, like, a guy who works for Oracle. Like, there's no full-time players on the U.S., but Pakistan, like, has been a top player. Like, my understanding is it's them in India who have like crushed international competition in cricket for as long as I can remember. But a U.S. apparently stunned them in the World Cup today. So USA, what the fuck is a kilometer? Go Patriots.
I wouldn't know, and I still really don't, a lick of cricket if it wasn't for John Boy. I really the only reason I even know a little bit about it is because of John Boy breakdowns, but having never seen a cricket paddle, a cricket field, a cricket ball in my life,
I believe it's called
many other pitch. A cricket pitch, whatever, anything cricket related, I can guarantee that like 97% of Americans probably haven't either, and we're out here upsetting a world power in cricket, and it's awesome. Obviously, congratulations to those guys who have worked very hard on this, and I like to.
While not being full timers. Well, not being full timers, by the
USA.
way. I mean, I would love to know. I didn't get time to read into this. First of all, I want to find the clip of the game ending. Like, I gotta see what that elation looked like.
I was gonna say,
because
how
I
many
saw
years
some
till we get the
pictures of
Disney movie?
fans. Dude, I know,
I
right?
believe in
It's gonna be
miracles.
Miracle
Yeah.
2.
Right.
You've
Please,
heard of
I'm
Miracle
begging,
on
dude.
Ice.
Now
No,
here's
Here's
Miracle on the
Miracle
cricket
on
pitch.
the wickets.
on the cricket pitch. Yeah, make sure
Where's
you
I'm
say
trying
it
to
like that.
find. There's a great like small breakdown of cricket, and maybe you guys can follow. Let me find it real quick. I gotta find it briefly. There is
All I know is that cricket is one of those sports that's played everywhere else. It's not really played here in the U.S. So-
I also love that. I don't know if Will, you probably haven't seen it because you're not a Twitter guy, but there's been like a debate recently in the cricket and baseball circuit of basically like both sports dissing each other because it's like,
That's always
how-
been a thing.
no, but like recently it's been like everybody's talking about it. It's like, imagine if a cricket player seen Paul Skeens throw 102 down the pipe, how would they'd have a heart attack if they seen that? And cricket players are like, well, have you seen this shit? Like, you think Shohei Ohtani could do that? It's just funny. That's actually perfect timing for this topic because that's all I've been seeing on my timeline for some reason.
I will
Like-
say this: cricket is kind of wild in terms of you can hit it anywhere, and if somebody
Yeah.
catches it, you're out. But like, and if they don't, you just keep
Man.
running back and forth. Keep going. Just do suicide.
Bobby and I have talked about, like, dude, if you tune into, for whatever reason, if you tune into a cricket broadcast, just look at the graphics. You'll be so confused from the rip. It's like you see all these numbers, all these names. It's like, what am I looking at?
Well,
Like,
there's a ton of
Oh,
positions. So,
yeah, and it's just like, it's like, oh, they need 179 runs to win. I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
what sense does that make? Like, and it's like, they got like, oh, there's like 70 balls left. I'm like, dude,
7.
I'm so lost. Like, 7. Like, you look at like, just tune into a cricket broadcast. I'm telling you, for like 10 seconds, and you'll be mind blown about how confused you are.
Sure, I'll check my
Like,
local
exactly.
BBC
Here
network
we go.
for
Yeah,
the
funnily
next.
Dude, all you
enough,
need to do
yes,
is
Yes.
ESPN Plus has it. Funnily enough.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
So-
yeah, dude, cricket on ESPN. Dude, I think I told Tyler this at one point. There was like a point where I don't know if it was like the World Cup or something for cricket. I forget what it was. Holy shit, did ESPN Plus push cricket mad hard for a few months before like in the start of the year. I swear to God, like every time I'm on ESPN Plus, and I was just looking for like FA Cup matches, stuff like that, and then I go on the front and it's just cricket. My entire ESPN Plus homepage was cricket. It was it was something else for a while. Oh, I did find a quick explainer. If anybody wants to take a gander at this.
Oh
boy, are
boy.
we getting copyrighted?
Oh,
Yeah, we are getting
absolutely.
copyrighted, but this clip is too funny.
Turn it up.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Shit.
By dashing between the git.
I'll start it over.
Cover point long on square leg, deep extra cover and 2 short legs.
What the hell is he talking about?
Oh, it's cricket. Marvelous game, really. You see, the bowler hurls the ball towards the batsman who tries to play away at a fine leg. He endeavors to score by dashing between the creases, provided the wicketkeeper hasn't whipped his bails off, of course.
Anybody get
So you
What?
guys understand cricket now, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
what I
You guys
just
get
heard
that
was the guy behind the wickets can hit the batter. Is that what he
Something
just
like,
said?
bro. There again, John Boy has a lot better breakdowns. At some point, I need to go like rewatch because like I watched them, but I've completely forgotten. And anytime I like watch like an actual
Oh,
cricket match,
yeah.
I
Hold
still
on,
have
hold
no
on.
idea.
Guys, you
dude.
know what I just heard? I just heard was the U.S. is making a comeback into world sports. First,
That's what I'm
it's cricket.
hearing.
Next, it's
That's
rugby.
what I'm hearing.
After that, we're coming for soccer.
Yeah, we're winning
Not
the
football.
2028.
Curling.
We're coming
We're-
for
How are we
soccer.
curling? Or polo?
We're winning the.
World Cup.
No,
Yeah.
we're winning Euros. We can't even do that, but we're winning it anyway. Like,
Oh God.
Yeah, good times. If you have nothing better to do on a Saturday at like 5 a.m. and you want to watch some cricket, ESPN Plus is the place to be.
I got the
Dude,
London
I'm
series
I'm
coming
telling
up.
And
Yeah.
place some bets.
I wonder if they have a betting scandal in cricket. I mean, it could
Cricket
happen.
betting scandals. Oh boy.
That'll be the next
I'm gonna look
podcast.
that one up.
We're gonna need like 2 months to research everything about the sport, and we'll still be confused, but it's coming. That is all for us here on Big League Breakdowns. A little bit of a wow, under an hour. I don't think that's happened yet. Follow us.
Hold on.
Look
I
at
got
our
it.
new
I got it.
graphic.
I got it. Okay, hold on. I got it. Cricket
Did it
has
again.
had a number of controversies relating to players being involved in betting aspects of the game. In particular, numerous players have been approached by bookmakers and bribed to throw matches. Aspects of matches,
Actually-
ergo the toss, or provide
We
other
need a whole
information.
episode on the history of betting in all sports.
I'm pretty sure I actually watched a documentary on cricket and sports, but I don't know why, but I think I did. Forgot about that.
Random
Follow us
documentary.
on Twitter at BL_breakdowns and everything else, essentially. You see Instagram. Look at our nice new graphic. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Big League Breakdowns. Check our description for
binoculars
all
to
your
read it.
audio. You do, but it's okay. All of our audio spots as well, Spotify and a bunch of other great stuff. But that is all for us here for episode 17. We will see you next time.